So I'm sure by now, if you've been anywhere near the news or online, you've seen virtually everyone give their takes on the Will Smith quote unquote slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars now over 2 weeks ago. And I decided to withhold my take until the Academy made their official decision on a punishment for Will Smith. And I'm glad I did because a lot of my initial speculation and takes would not have aged very well because at the time we didn't know very much. That was going through all the different scenarios in my head. If you want, I could do a future video of all my bad takes from the Will Smith that I never shared video, something like that. Let me know if you'd be interested in that. But the reason it was like that is because the situation has been so fluid and to some extent still is. On Friday, the decision from the Academy came, I think, almost 10 days earlier than initially thought. So I didn't know if I was going to make this video until the end of April. So here we are, and let's get into it. But just in case you haven't been following or forgot what happened, since there has been so much noise over the last few weeks on this, which I kind of predicted this. Initially, when this happened, I actually first texted some family. I'm like, be prepared tomorrow when you're watching the news for this slap to be the top story for a long time. And I was right. I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit for that. But anyways, so Chris Rock was presenting an award at the 2022 Oscars where he made a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith, who was sitting front row with her quote unquote husband. That's a whole other thing. Will Smith, who was nominated that evening for Best Actor in a Leading Role. The joke was about her look that night being G.I. Jane-esque because she has the bald head and she was wearing like a green colored dress. At first, it seemed that Jada and Will were laughing at the joke, but then we got a clip of her or a shot of her kind of rolling her eyes, kind of annoyed, and allegedly gave a look to Will Smith like, this is your chance to prove yourself. Go make this right. Suddenly, Will is casually walking on stage while Chris is still presenting and is kind of like, okay, what do you want? And once he reaches Chris on stage, he does what I'm calling a Hollywood slap, meaning it sounded like Will Smith hit him on his jacket. It was kind of a muffled, almost like he hit his microphone on his like suit jacket or whatever. As Will is walking back to his seat, he seems infuriated, like a red almost, with a kind of a smirk on his face, almost out of body look on him. And once he gets back to his seat, Chris is clearly caught off guard, and Will is then saying, keep my wife's name out of your mouth. And Chris goes, wait, what? I didn't hear you. And he goes, keep my wife's name out of your fucking mouth. And Chris continues to say, it was a G.I. Jane joke, come on. And then tries to continue after the whole repeating of the keep my wife's name out of your mouth. And when Chris asks for it louder, you could hear Will through Chris's microphone or some other microphone in the room picking this up. In the frame of seeing Will say this from his seat, you can hear, or you can see Lupita Nyong'o, who's another actress, behind him in shock, trying to figure out what's happening. Because at first it almost seemed, it was so out of left field what was happening that you could tell everyone was like trying to figure out, is this a joke? Is this happening? What's really happening? I remember watching it and hearing the joke at first and being like, okay. And then I saw Will walk up and I was like, okay, is this something, some skit? And then he slapped him and I was like, wait, what the heck just happened? And then he started the yelling from his seat and that's how I knew it was real. So long story short, the room energy clearly changed and Will stayed through the entire show. He ends up winning his award at the end of the night, the Oscar, and by all accounts left on his own accord that night and went to after parties and whatnot. There are conflicting reports of if Will wanted to leave but was convinced to stay, or was he asked to leave and convinced others to let him stay. We're not really 100% sure what happened there, but he won the award to a standing ovation, which has been a whole other subject of speculation and whatnot. He did apologize in his speech to everyone but Chris Rock and kind of tried to tie what he just did to his role playing Serena and Venus Williams' dad in the movie he was in, King Richard. And the only thing that's kind of a little suspect is he skipped the press room on his way out that night, but he was seen partying at some after parties with his Oscar in his hand and having a grand old time. I don't know if that was him saying like, this might be the last time I get to hang out with these people because I'm going to be banned, or he was just in denial about what happened or didn't know What was going to come of it? Who knows? But it didn't seem like he was acting like he had just assaulted someone on stage live during worldwide television broadcast on what was supposed to be the peak of his career. Now, there are plenty of detailed accounts across the web, so I didn't get into every little nitty gritty detail throughout the broadcast. But we come to find out later that Jada has alopecia, and so that might have been what really set off Will to protect his wife. And there's some history between Chris Rock and them as far as some jokes he made at past Oscars. So it seemed like this was a build up, and this was kind of the snapping point. At this point, I am not going to get into as much of the Chris Rock angle of this, or the actions he took, or what effects he may have, or what he may do, because he was the last few days reported or seen at a lawyer's office. And so I'm thinking there's going to be more coming out, if anything comes out from him on the legal front. And I think actually I respect the way he's been handling it at this point, Chris Rock, because he hasn't really made things worse, and he's not trying to comment on it too much, and has actually been handling it pretty well, and considering how shocking this was to probably be on the receiving end of. But the lawyer thing, a lot of people were kind of trying to say that him consulting lawyers was him consulting lawyers about the situation. We don't know for sure why he's consulting lawyers. That's kind of a common practice in business, especially someone his stature, to have lawyers involved in their business. So we will have to see in the near future what happens with Chris regarding Will and the Academy. As of this week, he basically just joked on stage on tour that he isn't going to talk about it unless he gets paid. And if Will go on Red Table Talk or not, which is Jada's talk show on Facebook Live or Facebook Watch, whatever it's called, we'll have to wait to see what happens with that, or if Will have a career in America because Jada was also just seen out on a red carpet appearing as if nothing happened and isn't really getting a lot of the pushback, even though some people are blaming her for some of the toxicity in their relationship, meaning their open relationship that's been talked about was supposedly her idea, and Will kind of just went along with it because he didn't want to lose her because of his past family history with divorce and broken homes. So there's a lot to unpack here that could be many, many parts. And there's many people out there making many different videos about this. So anyways, let's get to the big news, which is on Friday, the Academy banned Will from their events for 10 years. Now, this is where the narrative really changed and people's true feelings were exposed. First, I'll give my take on the 10-year thing, and then I'll respond to kind of what others have done and how this 10-year ban changed people's takes. But first, my initial thought on the 10-year ban punishment was sort of indifferent, because we don't really have a direct comparison for this incident. I can't remember anyone really walking on stage at the Oscars to physically assault someone. I know there's a story of John Wayne in 1973, who probably got the closest that we've seen to it, at least from what we know, where he was held back by security when an actor and activist, Sacheen Littlefeather, accepted Marlon Brando's award on his behalf to talk about Native American rights. And I haven't really seen any reporting on an actual assault in the past, if it ever happened, presumably because the Oscars are not known to be a place where that kind of stuff happens. It's supposed to be the pinnacle of motion pictures and has this prestige to it that doesn't welcome the same circus that maybe a Video Music Awards, a VMAs at MTV would. Although maybe going forward, we shouldn't really have the distinction and just kind of lump them all together as entertainment at this point, especially after this incident. I don't know. But anyways, one thing also that's important to remember is he didn't get his award taken away. And from what I know, the preceding title of Academy Award winner Will Smith it still applies. And every additional award after that, meaning like if you're saying 5-time Oscar award winner, whatever, doesn't really add any more kind of anything to your standing in society, in my opinion. At this point, I'd just be like, oh, well, I got my award. I don't really care about winning another one. Of course, winning this award puts you in this prestigious company, so being banned does have its backward draw, of course, which I'll touch on a little later. But I think it would have been worse for Will and the Academy to strip him of his award, because then they delve into the whole separating the art from the artist and diminishing the weight of that award for a performance in a motion picture, which is supposed to be just about the performance in the motion picture. And this is why I agree with past instances like Harvey Weinstein and Roman Polanski and Bill Cosby having their membership revoked, but not having to give back all their awards, or even I don't think being banned from being nominated or whatnot. But those are all things that are within the Academy. They can vote to nominate or whatnot, or have them win. But in those cases, they just changed the rules going forward. So that to me made a little bit more sense. And also, Will didn't get banned, speaking of which, from being nominated or winning again. He just wouldn't be able to accept the award live. But we can assume that if the Academy bans you, they might not nominate you unless enough people support you, or the sentiment changes from within, or the benefit of including you far outweighs the cost. But then again, that contradicts what I just said regarding the value and weight of the Oscar has, where if they aren't just taking into account the performance separate from the individual, then they are on the slippery slope of what does the award even mean anymore. And this is also going down the similar road of Louie C.K. and Morgan Wallen and Kanye West, where they were banned from events and even being nominated for things they did outside of the award show and outside of their art, but somehow made a comeback to be nominated and even win and perform. So anyways, I'm going to be working on a video regarding Louis C.K. and Morgan Wallen and Kanye West and all the like later about their kind of comeback, if you will. But maybe in a few years, if Will does end up getting work again in mainstream recognized ways, that the Academy will test nominating him if the work is good. Especially, like I said before, if the benefits of doing so outweighs the cost, or the ratings go down after this year's big bump and they think Will can help them by being nominated or attending. I think it could be a draw in the future if maybe Chris and Will make up and have them present and host together, or something that would draw the nostalgia of this incident while also acknowledging the growth and the kind of life improvements and life lessons learned. Who knows, but a lot can happen between now and then, so we'll have to wait to see. But even though I am indifferent on the actual 10-year ban news, many are not. And one panel YouTube channel that I like to frequently watch and get some insight into others' perspectives is Sherelle's World. And right after this news was announced of the 10-year ban, she had a panel of kind of her regular people that got pretty heated. And her panels up to that point, when it wasn't the 10-year ban had been announced, it was pretty civil and pretty kind of like, okay, Will's wrong, but I'm not sure how he should be punished or if the Academy is going to do anything right. They were kind of just waiting. And at first it was the whole like, this isn't race related, let's not bring race into it. But then the race angle slowly crept in because there was this blame game going around between the Academy and the production company, which we were more aware of was a black-owned production company. So people were starting to think it was more race-related. And then there was some revising of opinions once the whole conversation turned to, well, if there were two white men or one white man and one black man, whatever it was, then it would have been a different story, or they would have been celebrated or not been treated the same way. The thing with that is I'm not really convinced, because I think the bigger player in allowing this to happen was that the big star of the night, who is likable and well-known and is sitting front and center as the favorite to win one of the biggest awards of the night, is not normally expected, especially someone like Will Smith, who is known as a smiley, happy, likable guy. He's not expected to walk up on stage and assault someone who he knows. We know that, I mean, they've talked about each other. So if anything, I thought the whole stereotype would have been, if there was a racial stereotype going on here, would have been to have more security around because there were more black people. If this was going to be like a true, clear-cut racial thing, that's what I would think. Because I think the whole like black men are more angry or whatever, that whole stereotype, they would have had more security. But anyways, or he would have been rushed off even faster. I don't know. But then when the punishment came down, and after the resignation from Will Smith from the Academy, which already people were indifferent, people were kind of mixed on that because it was coming from Will himself. It didn't get as much backlash, even though many speculated that he wasn't really making that move on his own accord and maybe was trying to get ahead of more punishments coming out and more backlash against him. Who knows? But it was all in on the race thing and on this panel, in particular on this channel, when this 10-year ban came out. And it's the same panel that was commenting throughout. So a lot of things changed, and I wanted to touch on kind of the change in opinion. So I'm going to venture to say that people pulled out the race card to justify their belief that the 10 years was too much of a punishment for Will. Because I didn't really hear anybody else give any other reasons why it should be less other than it was just too much, and they think it's race related. And to my earlier point, this is a first of its kind. So you can say, oh, I wanted him to have less punishment, but I think the only thing we can do at this point is hope that if this ever happens again with anyone else, that they will be held to the same standard and have that same 10-year punishment minimum put on them as well, and just hold the Academy accountable for being consistent going forward. On that panel, many were saying they would have been happy with 1 to 2 years. But others made good points too, saying, well, the Academy wanted to really set the tone and show how serious they are, that they don't want this to ever happen again. And so they made an example out of Will Smith in today's context of today's world. And we have to apply today's standard to today's current events. That's what I think. But on that panel, someone mentioned, well, what about all those with allegations out there about them that haven't been punished by the Academy? And I think the answer is sitting right in front of you. They're just allegations, which are very different than you going up on live television and assaulting someone, which is proof right in front of our eyes on live TV. Most Hollywood troublemakers aren't going to the Oscars to cause trouble on live television. Maybe they do things at the private after parties or in more private, discreet ways. Will did this at the Academy's biggest money-making, most public event worldwide. So that's an important part of this. But speaking of worldwide, Sherelle herself on her channel panel talked about Will's opportunities overseas for a career in developing markets until maybe he's welcomed back to the US, or he never is. Maybe he can still work other places. Some places mentioned were Africa or India or the UK or China or Dubai. All potential fits for Will to use his existing star power to work until the US market calms down for him, if it ever does. Now, what I was taken back by was Sherelle's almost treating this as a jail sentence by referring to this as a case. And at first I was thinking, okay, calm down. It's just a ban from an award show in one organization. But then again, I was like, you know what? It is a pretty big deal because this is the biggest, most prestigious film organization in Hollywood. Some could say the most prestigious of all of entertainment industry. And some say this ban might actually be worse than a jail sentence in some ways. Now, I think will eventually spin this as kind of it was a blessing in disguise. Now I can focus on good work without the pressure of winning an award in my head. And I've come to the realization awards aren't important or should be tied to my worth or value and blah, 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 blah. Even if that is just a coping mechanism for him always being reminded of this incident when he sees his Oscar statue in his home. And unless he just remembers how good it felt to stand up there for his wife, or the speech, or the fun after party, who knows? But I do think, as it currently stands, the people in Hollywood / entertainment / film industry, whatever you want to call it, who give Will a second chance are going to be the smartest ones, because I don't see this as a career-ending thing. As long as he has a way to get his work out there, at least one path. It seems the most blowback is from the powers that be in the industry and not the customers themselves who are thinking to ourselves, well, if Will has learned and changed and is remorseful towards everyone involved and tries to make it right, why not have him back? Why not support him? So now, let's get into why I think the reaction to this story has changed so much and has also been polarizing in many ways in certain communities. And that is because I think this one incident has many different ideologies coming to a head. Those being Black Lives Matter, BLM, defund the police, and the whole diversity push. Just to name a few. Because on one hand, we have this quote unquote, we as black people mentality, like as a community, which in my opinion, unless that thinking stops of treating a group of people who happen to have similar traits as a monolith in all areas, I think history is going to keep repeating itself. I'll have more on that in a moment. But then there's a group saying, well, why wasn't there more security there to protect the onstage talent? But then there's the narrative of the cops being called and showing up, but Chris Rock deciding he didn't want to press charges or escalate the situation anymore. And so there's a lot of people who maybe are against the police, but then are like, why aren't they there to help? And blah, 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 blah. And then the one that is really tough one for probably the Academy and everyone involved to swallow is especially for this year, was what I saw was a year of really checking all the boxes, or as many as they could, as far as diversity goes, whether it's nominees, winners, performers, hosts, whoever, presenters, regarding race, sex, gender, abilities, nationalities, cultures, whatever you want to call it. If Will hadn't done this, it would have been a huge success from that standpoint. And the news of the ratings going up this year on top of that could have been attributed to the diversity aspect of the show, saying, hey, look at, people do like to watch this sort of thing, kind of give them a green light to do more of what they did. But now it's all basically been overshadowed, and now everything's being attributed to that. So if we take out the Will Smith slapping Chris Rock moment, then it was a win all around. But now that people are displeased with the actions from the Academy on the panel I was just referring to, they're now basically saying burn the entire thing down, forgetting all the progress so far that they've fought for and got their way on regarding the Academy. Sure, this is a little hiccup if we are saying what one person of the black community goes through is good or bad for all of us, depending on the situation. I don't like this all or nothing. If we can't have it all, we don't want any of it attitude. Sure, you shouldn't put up with horrible behavior or treatment. I completely support that. But recognizing the progress and still hoping for more progress, I think is the best way forward without kind of starting over and over again every single time. And on that same panel, a girl named Gray Hair Diva, who is a frequent contributor on Sherelle's World, said basically she thinks black people, we as black people is what she said, should boycott, let's say, their next big release, Marvel. And I was like, wait, hold on. Are you telling me that you're going to boycott, let's say, Black Panther 2, which is just because Will Smith was treated poorly by the Academy, in your opinion, for something he did? You're going to punish a production of a blockbuster with, from what I understand, an all-black cast and development and production team that is likely to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest film of the year at the box office. What good does that do? I get she was saying hit him in the pocketbook to show your value, but at what cost? Is that really a fair trade-off in this situation, given the circumstance? And this is where the black people as a monolith, I think, works against the cause. And a few more thoughts, and then we'll wrap up. But this also shows that people looking for a reason to be upset will find the reasons no matter what. I can see how no matter what was done in response to this, everyone involved would have gotten some kind of backlash. You cannot make everyone happy all the time. And the panel I've been referring to this whole time is just one example of that. In this case, if you're looking for racism or a race angle to the story, you can find one. Or even convince yourself there is one where it doesn't even exist, in my opinion. I think it just boils down to Will Smith taking advantage of his likability and recognizability to not only walk up and slap Chris Rock, but also to be able to stay in the room, accept his award, and walk out on his own terms that night. Now, the fallout and the response was messy, I agree for sure, but a lot of the blame game was going on, which I think may be resolved if discovery happens with any Chris Rock legal action. And to me, the whole night was a display of Will Smith's privilege, whatever you want to call it, likability privilege, recognizability privilege, pretty privilege, rich privilege, whatever you want to call it. I think that was what played into this a lot. So share any response to my take or any additional thoughts you have in the comments, and let me know if you want more videos on this topic, if you want to hear my thoughts that didn't age well or anything later on. I'm planning on, if Chris Rock does anything noteworthy regarding this, I will make sure to update on that. With that said, click around the channel for more, or if you are here on YouTube, head to the description for more related content, or tap or click the screen for more.